On the map, there was nothing. No dot, no name, no thin black circle to say, people live here. Just a patch of green between a river and a railway line. But if you stood on that same patch in real life, you would see a whole world that wasn't supposed to exist. Apartment blocks, schoolyards, boiler chimneys breathing out white steam, children on sleds, women dragging nets of potatoes up dark stairwells, and far beyond the last house, behind a tall fence and floodlights, something that hummed at night. The state had a phrase for places like this: closed administrative territorial formation. The people who lived there used shorter words: the zone, the object, the city with a number, or, more often, just here. The boy is 11 when he first understands that his home does not officially exist. He discovers it in the most Soviet way possible, on a piece of paper. His class has to fill out forms for a school competition. Name, age, parents' names, place of birth. He writes it the way he hears it when his mother spells the address over the phone: Chelyabinsk 40. The teacher pauses over his form. No, no, she says, smiling too quickly. We write it like this. She crosses out Chelyabinsk 40 and writes, Chelyabinsk region. That's it. A whole city reduced to two vague words. But, the boy starts, we don't live in Chelyabinsk. We live in Chelyabinsk region? She repeats, still smiling. Don't be difficult. It's the same thing. It doesn't feel like the same thing. That evening, he takes down the big school atlas from the shelf. He finds the Urals. He finds Chelyabinsk. He finds the river and the road his parents mention when they talk about going out. He puts his finger exactly where his city should be. There is forest, nothing else. He presses his finger harder, as if he can push the truth through the paper. It still shows nothing. The city itself looks ordinary if you glance at it from ground level. 5-story Khrushchevkas with flaking paint. 9-story towers with stairwells that smell of cabbage and wet coats. A school with a bust of Lenin out front and broken windows around the back. A house of culture with plaster workers marching toward a painted sunrise. There is a park with a rusted Ferris wheel that moves on holidays if the mechanic is sober. There are swings that squeak. There is a kiosk that sells ice cream in brick-sized blocks when there is any. If you don't know where you are, it feels like any other small Soviet city. But if you pay attention, the wrongness starts to show. The buses are all the same color, yellow. No route numbers, no names. Outside, buses shout, city center, railway station, market. Here, the sign just says, special route. You only know where it goes if you already live here. Strangers never ask for directions, because strangers never arrive by accident. You never see tourists. No traveling circus. No musicians from Leningrad passing through on tour. Adults notice that. Children feel it. The boy realizes something simple. In every story on the radio, the world is big. Here, it is exactly as big as the fence. His father works at the object. That's how everyone says it. Not factory, not plant, not research center. Just the object. A single heavy word, like a door that never opens. Every morning, his father puts on the same dark blue overalls, with a small badge that does not say very much. He leaves early, before the boy is fully awake, and returns when the sky is already dark again in winter. Sometimes, when he comes home, his clothes smell of hot metal and oil. Sometimes of chlorine. Sometimes of nothing at all. And those are the days the boy's mother is most nervous. On those days, his father doesn't kiss his son in the hall. He stops in the doorway and says too calmly, Stay back. Don't touch me yet. He undresses in the corridor, drops his clothes into a thick plastic bag, ties it tight. What happens to that bag? The boy asks once. It gets washed, his father says. He never sees the bag again. There are rules in the city, official rules and family rules. Official ones are on posters and in books. Do not take photographs of industrial and transport sites. Do not discuss work with unauthorized persons. Report suspicious behavior. The family rules are quieter but sharper. On the train, you say you live in the regional center. If someone asks what Papa does, you say factory worker and change the subject. You never draw the fence. That last one, he learns the hard way. For a holiday, the art teacher organizes a drawing contest, My Homeland. The boy spends all evening on his picture. He draws his building with its crooked balconies. He draws the street lamps and the playground with the bent slide. He draws his mother hanging clothes out on the 5th floor balcony. And behind it all, he draws what he sees every day from his kitchen window. The tall fence, the watchtowers, the searchlights, the smooth dome of the reactor building rising behind them like a second dead moon. He adds small yellow dots to the towers to show the lights. It looks beautiful to him, like a protective wall. His drawing never appears on the school display. 2 days later, his mother is called to the principal's office. She comes back with tight lips and a single sheet of paper folded twice. She doesn't shout. She doesn't cry. She takes the drawing off the fridge and, without comment, holds it over the kitchen sink. The paper catches quickly. The fence and the towers blacken and curl. The reactor dome melts into a streak of flame. Some things, she says quietly, we don't put on paper. Ever. Do you understand? He nods. He doesn't. Not yet. But he never draws the fence again. Sometimes people disappear. Not in a dramatic movie way. No late night knocks. No flashing lights. Just absence. One day, a boy named Tolya sits 2 desks over in class, chewing on his pencil, whispering jokes. The next day, his desk is empty. The teacher says, he moved. No one saw a truck. No one carried out furniture. No one said goodbye. The timetable quietly changes. His name is gone from the class list. On the way home, the boy walks past Tolya's building. 3rd floor, 2nd entrance. He can't remember the exact number, but he knows the window, where Tolya once stuck out a hand and dropped him a chocolate when they were playing soldiers below. Now, the door on that landing has a thin paper strip across it, stuck with official purple stamps. He cannot read the printed words from the stairwell, but he knows the shape of the warning. Do not open. Quarantine. When he tells his parents at dinner, his mother's fork freezes halfway to her mouth. Forget that word, his father says quickly. Forget that door. You understand? You didn't see anything. How can I forget a door? The boy asks. His father looks at him for a long second. Try, he says. The city has a library with 3 tall bookcases and a librarian who knows everything and says almost nothing. On the wall above her desk hangs a large, colorful political map of the USSR. The boy has stared at it for years without really seeing it. One day, he sees it. He is tracing the route of the Trans-Siberian Railway with one finger, from Moscow to Vladivostok, when his finger passes right through the region where he lives. He knows where the big regional center is. He can find its dot easily. He knows the river they sometimes drive along. He knows the bend, the forest, the lake with the muddy beach where people go in summer. There should be something here, at least a dot. At least the lie of another town's name. There is nothing. Only the printed word forest in small green letters. Comrade librarian, he says, is this map old? It's missing a city. She looks up slowly, then follows his gaze. Her eyes find the exact spot without needing guidance. The expression that crosses her face is gone in under a second, but he catches it anyway. Fear first, then anger, then something like tiredness. The map is accurate, she says in a flat voice. Go back to your reading. But how can it be accurate if we're not on it? He insists. We're here. He taps the blank space with his fingertip. Her hand closes around his wrist. Not hard, but firmly enough to make him stop. Listen to me, she says quietly. You live in the Chelyabinsk region. That is all you ever say. Do you understand? He swallows. Yes. She lets go. As he walks back to his seat, he feels the skin where her fingers touched. It burns more than if she had slapped him. Once a year, someone from the organs visits the school. He wears a plain suit and a plain face. No medals, no obvious pistol. He gathers the older students in the assembly hall and gives a lecture about state secrets. He talks about NATO spies. He talks about leaflets dropped from balloons. He talks about enemy radio voices and slippery tongues. Then he says a sentence that hangs in the room like a smell. Your entire city is a secret. Every word you say about it outside this fence can become a weapon in the enemy's hands. A girl raises her hand. What enemy? She asks. His smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. The usual one, he says. The one who would very much like to see what's on the other side of your fence. The boy sits in the third row, suddenly aware of how many questions he has asked at home, at school, in the library. He feels them all hang over his head like invisible pins. Strange things happen to animals too. The city is full of dogs, half official, half stray. They recognize faces better than any guard. One evening, the boy notices that the dog from their courtyard, a big lazy mutt everyone calls Rex, has patches of fur missing on his back. Maybe kids threw something on him, someone says. Maybe mange, says someone else. Rex scratches until his skin bleeds. He doesn't want to play anymore. He lies under the swing and pants, tongue dry, eyes unfocused. A few weeks later, Rex is gone. No one saw someone take him away. No one buried him. He just stops existing in the yard, the way cities stop existing on maps. That same week, the boy hears his mother whisper, "Workshop 7" in the kitchen. Her voice is thin and scared. Again? She says. How many times can there be no danger, and then someone's hair falls out? His father answers, low. They said it's under control. Don't repeat what you hear, not even to him. Even to him, she insists. Later that night, when the boy pretends to sleep, he hears the click of the bedroom door as they check he's really not listening. He stares at the ceiling and imagines invisible dust floating down from the object, settling into the soil, into the river, into Rex's fur. He wonders how you can be afraid of something you can't see, can't smell, can't draw, and aren't supposed to name. The first time he hears the siren, it is not for the city. It is for the object. A long, rising wail from beyond the fence that slices through a quiet afternoon. People in the courtyard freeze. His mother stands at the kitchen sink, hands in soapy water, and does not move at all. For 3 seconds, she does not blink. What is that? He asks. Nothing, she says. Her lips are white. The siren rises, falls, rises again. Somewhere very far away, another siren answers it. Trucks roar down the main street toward the gate. Big orange civil defense vehicles with hoses and tanks, and men in gray suits in the back. The boy presses his face to the window. "Step away from the glass," his father says sharply. "But what if—" "Step away," his father repeats. The siren screams for 13 minutes. Then it stops. The trucks come back later, moving slowly this time. The men in gray suits are hosing down the tires. No one turns on the radio. No one looks out of their windows openly. In the evening, on the city loudspeakers, a calm female voice makes a short announcement. Today, at 16 Honkrulao, there was an unscheduled technical test of the emergency warning system. There is no danger to the population. Continue your normal activities. Everyone nods in the right places. Everyone pretends to believe. The next day at school, no one mentions the siren. The boy notices that Tolya's old sealed door is still sealed. He also notices that the teacher's hands shake slightly when she writes the date on the board. The blackout comes in winter. Light goes out in the middle of his homework. Radio, ceiling bulbs, the buzzing refrigerator, all silent at once. "Stay where you are," his mother says. She fumbles for candles. From the living room, he hears his father pull the curtains aside, and then a second later, "Not too close to the glass." The corridor glows with flickering yellow. The kitchen smells of smoke and stewed cabbage. He walks to the window anyway, staying a few steps back like his father taught him. Outside, the city is dark. No street lamps. No neon signs. Just black shapes of buildings against a slightly less black sky. But beyond the last row of houses, past the invisible fence, the object is still lit. Emergency lights burn cold and white around the domes and towers. The facility looks like an island in a dead sea. For the first time, the boy sees his city the way a stranger in a plane might, not as a cluster of buildings, but as a whole. A square of deeper darkness surrounded by villages and distant real cities, where electricity is still on and names are printed on maps. In that moment, the atlas in his school bag and the window in front of him finally match. On paper, there is nothing here. In the sky, there is nothing here. They have built a ghost so carefully that even the stars seem to agree it shouldn't exist. "Why are you quiet?" his mother asks behind him. He doesn't answer. He is looking at the illuminated object and the dead black city and thinking a thought he doesn't yet dare say aloud. If something happens over there, we will disappear in a way that will look perfectly normal on every map in the world. No new dot will vanish. No border will change. Just one more unmarked patch of forest. The power comes back after 20 minutes. The bulbs flicker. The refrigerator coughs back to life. The radio resumes a cheerful song about a bright Soviet future. Everything looks the same. But from that night on, when he opens his atlas and sees the blank space, he no longer feels like the map is wrong. He feels like it's telling the truth no one will ever admit. Somewhere, there is a city full of people, secrets, and quiet alarms. A city that exists with all the weight of concrete and steel, and yet, officially, never existed at all. The winter he turns 16, the sky breaks. It doesn't look like much at first, just a color. Not the soft gray of snow clouds, not the deep blue of clear frost. A dirty, yellowish smear, like someone wiped an oily rag across the horizon. It appears one afternoon above the forest, in the direction everyone calls simply over there, where the fence is, where the object breathes. At first, no one says anything. People in the courtyard hang laundry, drag sleds, carry coal. Then the wind shifts. The smell arrives before the sound. It is not smoke, not gasoline, not burning wood. It is metallic and sweet at the same time, like hot coins and rotten fruit. His mother is at the kitchen window when it hits. Her face changes in an instant. "Close everything," she says. "Now. Windows, vents, wet the cloth." He has never seen her move so fast. She rips a sheet in half, dunks it under the tap, and shoves it into his hands. "Door crack," she says. "Hurry." "Is it a fire?" he asks. She doesn't answer. Outside, someone is shouting. He hears the word workshop and explosion and wind direction. By the time he presses the wet cloth into the gap under the door, the siren starts. Not the long, slow moan from the object he heard once before. The city siren. It goes from silence straight into a full scream, as if it's been waiting a long time. The official voice comes 5 minutes later. It crackles from loudspeakers on poles at every corner, from a box in the stairwell, from the little radio in the corner of the room that suddenly turns on by itself. "Attention, attention, citizens, an emergency situation has occurred at the Enterprise. There is no danger to the population. Do not leave your homes. Close windows and doors. Stay calm." No danger. Stay calm. His mother moves through the apartment like someone packing for an invisible trip. She tapes the edges of the window frames. She lays wet towels along the sill. She pulls food from open shelves and stuffs it into the refrigerator. "Where's Papa?" he asks. "Working," she says. The word sounds like a curse. The phone rings once, then dies. The line goes dead. He looks at the atlas on the shelf. He thinks, wildly, if we disappear now, the map doesn't have to change at all. The shock doesn't come from the siren. It comes from the buses. He sees them when he disobeys his mother and peeks out through a gap in the curtain. Long, gray, unmarked buses pushing through the drizzle of yellow air. They roar past their building toward the farther edge of the city, toward the villages outside, toward the open world. He counts them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Packed so full he can see faces against the fogged-up glass. Faces that are not from his building, not from his yard. Faces in overalls, in coats that don't belong to city workers. The object is sending its people out. Why do they get to leave? He asks, not sure if he meant to ask it out loud. His mother looks at him for a long second. Because they're already glowing, she says. The sentence is so wrong and so simple that it lands harder than any explanation. He doesn't know yet exactly how radiation works. He just knows two types of people now. Those who are allowed to leave, and those who are told to stay put and remain calm. By evening, the cloud has spread over everything. Streetlights click on, turning the yellow haze into cones of dirty light. Snow begins to fall, thin, dry flakes that don't behave right. They drift lazily, spiraling in slow circles, landing on the windowsill in a powder that doesn't melt immediately. On the radio, music plays. Not news, not instructions. Marches. Then a cheerful pop song about youth and spring, completely wrong in this color of sky. The phone comes back to life only once. It rings, harsh and sudden. His mother grabs it before a second ring. She listens without speaking, her face going blank. "Yes," she says finally. "Yes, I understand." She hangs up, puts the receiver down carefully, as if it might explode. "What did they say?" the boy asks. "Papa is staying at the object," she says. "Indefinitely." "Is he all right?" "He is working," she repeats. "They need everyone." She does not say the thing they are both thinking. If they needed everyone, then something broke that was never supposed to break. The next morning, School is closed for sanitary reasons. That is what the notice says, handwritten in neat capital letters and taped to the entrance doors. Instead of classes, men in white coats come and line the children up in the yard. There is snow on the ground, but nobody is allowed to play in it. They stand on bare patches of ice and asphalt, shivering in their coats. Each child steps forward to stand under a metal frame that looks like an empty door. A box with a needle flicker on top ticks as they pass through. If the needle moves too far, a man in a respirator frowns and scribbles on a clipboard. "What is it?" someone asks. "Just a check for microcontamination," he says in a muffled voice. "Routine procedure. Watch your step." The boy goes through, holds his breath. The needle jumps. Not much, just a little twitch to one side. The man in the respirator stares at the dial, hesitates, then thumps the side of the box with 2 knuckles. The needle falls back. "Next," he says. The boy is pushed along. On the way out, he glances at the snow. In some places, it looks normal. In others, it has a faint, grayish crust, as if someone sprinkled ashes over it. "Don't eat snow this winter," his mother tells him that night. "I don't eat snow. I'm not 5, he says automatically. "I mean it," she says. Her voice makes it a new rule, heavier than any before. Officially, nothing terrible happens. There is no funeral for the object, no sirens for the city, no black borders in the newspaper, only rumors. Workshop 7 had an incident. A tank lost integrity. A valve did not respond. Someone forgot to tighten something. Someone followed orders too precisely. Some say it was a test. Some say it was a routine flush. Some say it was an experiment. All agree on one thing. Something poisonous got out. People whisper numbers in stairwells. 10 kilometers. 20. 50. The distance the cloud traveled. The distance you need to be before it's no danger. He hears another number once, from his father's co-worker who has drunk too much. 300 kilometers of contaminated rivers. The man slurs in the kitchen before his mother hisses at him to shut up. "That's not for him," she says. "It's not even for us." In the months that follow, the city becomes a place of small disappearances. Not the sudden, cinematic kind. The quiet kind that drift away over weeks and months, like ash. A girl in his class, who once outran every boy on the field, now gets tired climbing stairs. Her hair thins. Her mother starts wearing the same headscarf every day and stops making eye contact with neighbors. The old man upstairs, the one who once worked at the first secret facility, goes to the hospital. Nobody sees an ambulance. Nobody sees him come back. One day, there is a new family in that apartment. They have a baby. They paint over the old wallpaper. They don't know the stories behind the cracks. The dog population shrinks. Rex was just the first. Others get sick, lose fur, vanish. Children stop naming new dogs. It feels unlucky. Once, in the clinic, the boy hears a doctor say the phrase, "increased background," in a tired voice. He adds it to his list of words that are allowed in one room and forbidden in another. The state responds the way it always does, with paper. There are new forms at work, new protocols, new lectures. At a parents' meeting, a man from the Ministry of Health comes and speaks in dry, reassuring sentences. "There is no cause for panic," he says. Yes, there was a release of certain substances. The levels are within acceptable limits. Long-term monitoring will be conducted. The risk to the population is minimal. "What about the villages downriver?" someone asks. "All necessary measures have been taken," he says. He doesn't say which measures. He doesn't say on whom. Afterwards, in the cloakroom, the boy hears two mothers whispering, coats half on. They dumped it into the river again, one says. My brother's village got evacuated overnight, the other says. They loaded them on buses like cows, didn't let them take anything, said it was temporary. Where did they take them? The second woman shrugs. To another map, probably, she says bitterly. Years pass. The cloud is gone. The fear becomes background noise. The boy finishes school. Half his class stays. Half moves in ways that are never fully explained. He applies to a polytechnic institute in the regional center and, against the expectations of his teachers, gets in. Leaving the city is like peeling off a second skin. At the gate, a guard checks his papers 3 times. He signs a separate document, another oath of silence. He steps onto a bus that, for the first time in his life, has a destination sign that matches a name printed on the map. On the road out, he sees the fence from the wrong side. From this angle, the city looks exactly like what it has always been on paper. Nothing special. Just some buildings hidden behind trees. No sign that the whole place is an unspeakable sentence in the middle of the forest. He feels an irrational urge to wave, as if the city could see him leave. He doesn't. In the open world, people know how to say Chelyabinsk out loud. They know the names of famous factories, sports teams, writers. When he says Chelyabinsk region, nobody flinches. It's just another place. He doesn't say the number. He doesn't say the object. He learns to pretend that his childhood was simply in the Urals, like everybody else's. And yet, every now and then, he hears something on the radio or the television that sounds uncomfortably familiar. A brief mention of an incident at a Soviet industrial installation on a foreign channel. A shot of men in respirators walking through mud. A headline in a foreign magazine that somehow fell into his hands in the dorm. Soviet nuclear disaster alleged in the Urals, government denies. He stares at a blurry, smuggled photograph of barrels stacked along a riverbank. The caption says, "Location unknown." He knows exactly where it was taken. The river bend, the power lines, the shape of the hill in the background. He looks at the timestamp in the corner of the picture. It matches the year the sky in his city turned yellow and the sirens howled. His roommate walks in, sees the magazine. Western propaganda, the roommate snorts. They invent accidents to scare us. The boy folds the magazine closed. Yeah, he says. Probably. He doesn't sleep that night. Years later, the country that built his city starts to fall apart. Flags change. Names change. New maps are printed. In one of them, for the first time, his city appears. Not under its old code name. Under a real name. Ozersk. Or something like it. A small dot. A word where there used to be just forest. It feels wrong. Not because the city doesn't deserve a name. Because the name comes long after the danger. Like putting a gravestone on a grave nobody admitted existed. He visits his mother. She is older now, her hair thin, her hands stiff. They sit at the same kitchen table, under the same lamp, with a newer map. He taps the dot with his finger. Look, he says, we're on it now. She squints. Oh, she says. So they remembered us. There is no triumph in her voice, no pride, only a tired, dry humor. Nice of them to put us in the world after they were done experimenting. In the late 1990s, a documentary crew comes to the city. They bring cameras, microphones, questions. They interview doctors, retired workers, widows. They talk about increased cancer rates, about children born with things missing, about lakes you can't swim in, and mushrooms you shouldn't pick. The boy, now a man, watches the finished documentary years later on a television in his own apartment in yet another city. In one shot, he sees his old schoolyard, the same cracked asphalt, the same iron goalposts. In another, he sees the library where the map once showed only forest. The camera lingers on a new, updated map on the wall. There is a dot now, a name. The narrator says, in a serious voice, "For decades, this city did not exist officially. Its people paid the price for a secret the world was never meant to see." He changes the channel. It doesn't help. The images have already carved themselves into the inside of his skull. Somewhere out there, people are watching his childhood as a horror film. For them, it is a story. For him, it is a street, a smell, a list of rules he grew up breathing like air. He goes back once, years later, for his mother's funeral. The city looks smaller. The fence looks older. The object is still there, humming behind its walls. On his way back to the bus, he passes the library. The building is the same. The windows are the same. Inside, the librarian is someone new. On the wall, the map is different. His eye finds the dot without thinking. He reads the name printed next to it and feels a strange, cold anger. They have finally admitted the city exists. They still haven't written what it really is. Not a name. Not a population number. Not a dot in the right place. A question. How many people do you need to hide before the map becomes more honest than the country? He leaves without checking out a book. At the gate, a young guard checks his passport, bored. "Visiting relatives?" the guard asks. "No," the man says. He looks back once, at the city that was a blank space for most of his life. "I grew up here," he adds. The guard shrugs. "There are worse places," he says. The man nods. He doesn't bother to explain that the worst thing about this place was not the fences, not the cold, not even the invisible dust. It was the feeling that if something wiped it off the face of the earth, the rest of the world wouldn't even notice the change. Because on every important piece of paper, on every proudly printed map, for decades, this nightmare of concrete, steel, alarms, and secrets was just what the atlas said it was. Nothing.